This is an ad for Roundup Weed and Grass Killer with Sure Shot Wand. It kills weeds down to the root, so they don't come back. It works for you, your neighbor's neighbor, and his neighbor's neighbor. It's Roundup Weed and Grass Killer with Sure Shot Wand. When used as directed, always read and follow pesticide label directions.
This episode is brought to you by 100% Pure New Zealand. New Zealand's unique spirit is defined by a connection between land and people. Discover Nelson Tasman, an enchanting region of artisans and natural beauty. Experience the town of Kaikoura's abundant sea life and culinary delights. Then transport yourself to the Bay of Plenty, home to geothermal features and rich Māori culture. New Zealand is now open to US travellers. Visit newzealand.com to learn more.
Hey race fans, Hall of Famer Darrell Waltrip here. You know it's time to drop the green flag on another edition of Leaning Right and Turning Left with Sadler and the Senator, powered by Pace-O-Matic. So, hey, pull those belts tight one more time. Here's my buddy Hermie Sadler and Senator Bill Stanley. Boogity, boogity, boogity. Let's see what they have to say, boys and girls.
I'm Virginia State Senator Bill Stanley, and I am leaning right.
And I'm former NASCAR driver and Fox Sports analyst Hermie Sadler, and I am turning left, leaning right and turning left with Sadler and the Senator. And as always, we are powered by Pace-O-Matic.
What are you doing, Hermie?
I'm doing great, buddy. How are you?
Well, I was doing great until I got to your Sadler Travel Plaza here in South Hill where we're taping, and your bathroom attacked me. So I'm a little moist over here, if that makes any difference to you.
Cut.
Clarification,
So,
please.
No, I went into the bathroom. I was checking out my hair, washing my hands. You shouldn't do two things at once, and the water splashed all over my pants, and it looks like a...
Was it deep?
Looks like I've
Been here 25
like I went to
years.
the
and we
restroom and
got
never took my pants down.
25 years, I
attack.
got our first complaint on
Yeah.
the height of the blow dryer in the bathroom.
Well, no, that's
and it
the
comes
funny
from
part.
a sitting United States Senator.
Not United States. No, I would never cross the
Virginia.
Potomac. Virginia. No, so I go in the bathroom, and I get my pants wet. I'm like, oh my goodness, this is ridiculous. And I see one of those hand dryers, that you put your
Oh,
hands
yeah.
on, it goes, woo. And so I'm like, oh, here's a way to do it. So I'm sitting there, and I've moved of course, it's in the area, and I moved real close to it, and I'm making sure that the thing is going. And this guy pops out of your stall.
Big truck driver.
Yeah, big truck driver.
Bubba.
I've never seen anybody leave a bathroom so fast in my life. And
Without washing his hands.
he did not wash his hands. He walked right out. He thought he was fine. And so usually you come to a truck stop and you see somebody doing something weird. Well, it was me this time. So
Was
thanks,
the water
sir.
cold, Senator?
It was very cold, and it's still
Indeed.
cold.
So you've already jumped the gun a little bit, but we do need to set the stage. We are at Sadler Travel Plaza of South Hill, Virginia, a dealer for Pilot, Flying J, and Shell Motiva products. This place has been here a long time.
30
All
years
of those
almost.
companies deny any knowledge of this podcast.
And I'll introduce our guest. Of course, always good to be with you,
And with you.
Senator Stanley. And we're bringing back, by popular demand,
Yes.
the I say he's the man in charge, but he is yet to really embrace that title at Boyd Chrysler Dodge Jeep over here, Mr. Shep Moss
And Ram.
and Ram. He is more importantly member of town council here in South Hill, at least for the time being.
Well, he's got the
week.
nickname. He's got the nickname Burn Pile. So it's Shep Burn Pile Moss.
Burn Pile Moss.
It's hot in South Hill right
It
now.
is.
And on this particular episode, you told me last week, Hermie, we want to make this podcast about you, which I'm not a big fan of, but that's what you said you wanted to do. So I thought to myself, who, along with Shep, has great knowledge of events of my past, or happened to have been there, or tried to talk me out of, or partook in with me? And that is none other. Now, a couple of weeks ago, y'all remember we played some of the commercials we did with Rock down in Greensboro.
Oh, yeah.
Dwayne The Rock Johnson.
Sadler Auto Center of South Hill, where the star of the best commercial in that run of commercials, he played the quote-unquote nerdy, obnoxious car salesman. That would be, and that made him famous. Always has been famous. That would be Greg Thrift, the Honorable Greg Thrift from right here in South Hill, Virginia. Greg,
Welcome.
That's Greg Dumpster Fire Thrift.
dumpster fire.
Well, if it can be brush pile.
Yeah.
Hey, now let's help the audience to remember. And if you haven't listen to that podcast. It's one of our better podcasts. All of these podcasts we've done are great, but this one was a really incredible conversation. I mean,
It
you know,
was.
I had brought these clips, put them on the board. Brad Tuesday, our executive producer, put them on the board, and I was needling our boy Hermie over there about it, and thought it was so funny.
Wasn't
and
that
then we
the-
got a huge into a huge deep conversation about his relationship with the wrestler Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson back in the day. And so, if you don't mind, we have that clip, one of your great Oscar-winning performances there, Greg, that I think the audience just needs to hear again. So, if you don't mind, I'm going to tell Brad here. Brad, do you mind playing it?
Hello, Mr. Rock. Can I help you?
Well, The Rock says
It doesn't matter if I can help you. You see, I know what you're looking for. A great car at a great price for the great one, right? Well, we're no jabronis around here. We're not checking you into the SmackDown Hotel. How about this, baby? Right here.
Well, The Rock says
I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, well, sure, I can do it. I can knock a couple of bucks off for you. I smell what you're cooking. Hey, where are you going?
The Rock's going to Sadler Auto Center, jabroni.
Was it something I said?
Well, now we got the video too, and I don't know. That looks like maybe your son or grandson compared to because
that's back
we look
when
like
I
a
had-
pinochle game right now in the corner of this.
My question
travel
is
center.
to you, Greg, before we get into this conversation. When The Rock talked to you that way and said he was and called you a jabroni,
Yes.
and walked out of the showroom, did it ever cross your mind to slap him across the face?
No, basically because I came up to his waist. But I have to. He is one of the nicest guys I have ever had the pleasure, the honor to meet. And once we get into the story about Florida, you and I, we went to dinner with him and his wife.
Yeah.
Nicest guy ever. And
The trip to Florida on one of these trips to take the Cadillac, I took Greg with me is
well, what a
quite
mistake
interesting.
that was.
Hermie's still paying for that dinner, by the way, just so you know.
I bet The Rock still calls Greg.
He calls me something. Listen, that commercial, as a matter of fact, was the last commercial we recorded that day. We did about 4 or 5 that day.
Yep.
We were running out of time. We were doing it in Terry Labonte Chevrolet. We were running out of light, the ambient light coming in. So we did 2 takes, and the commercial was too long. And they weren't going to do it. They almost scrapped it. The director, he was getting a little miffed, shall we say. Anyway, honestly, Rock pulled me aside. He said, look, here's the way we're going to do this. You say this, I say this, you say. And the director came over and he looked at him and he said, hang on, we got this. And he said, you do this, I do this, you do this, this. And he said, we'll get it in 30 seconds and we'll be under time. And we did it. And the next take was it. And that's what you heard.
And you played a perfect, nerdy, obnoxious car salesman.
I wonder why.
It was not a reach.
Typecasting.
Not a reach.
Wasn't that podcast called The Day The Rock Took Hermie for Granted?
That's exactly right. And
Everybody's
Gets that
having fun
granted.
except Hermie.
See, and I got to tell you, I usually come up with the titles and I do the summaries for our podcast. But that one came from Brad Tuesday. I'd said, Brad, I want to unleash your creative side. And so all the way home, I had to listen to some of the worst titles he had ever thrown out about what this would be. He calls me up about 9:30 that night and says, I got it. He said, the time when The Rock took Hermie for granted. And I said, you got to be kidding me.
That's perfect.
Unbelievable. So good thing for Brad Tuesday. He came through.
Brad, you are the man. I know you're not going to get any credit for the most part, but you are the man.
It has unleashed a new side of Brad
So,
Tuesday.
what are we going to accomplish today, Senator?
Well, I don't know. You brought the friends over, and I think what we're going to talk about today is, there's so many interesting facets about you that I think what we're going to talk about are those times in the past when you're involved with wrestling, how you got involved with wrestling, certain wrestlers. We've got some things queued up here that I think we'll probably play.
Yep.
But these are the 2 gentlemen that were around you during those times. I know they've got some great stories, so I'm thinking let's talk about that. That's an interesting side of you, Hermie. And yeah, when I told you, I said, we really need to do a deep dive on Hermie's history because there's so much to it, so many layers. It's something that we should not overlook, and especially I think you're the hook. I'm
Some
just
of
a
it we need
dopey
to
senator
overlook.
over
Some
here.
of it we need to overlook. No, not all of it.
Well, in last week's podcast, which was with Brett Griffin, I loved it. The opening was Hermie lays down some ground rules. We will not talk about anything that happened after 8 o'clock at night or anything that ever happened in Vegas. We never went to Vegas. And so Brett opened with a story about 8 o'clock in Vegas.
He said, well, it was after 8 o'clock. We were in Fontana, California, and Hermie decided we want to take the rental car on the racetrack at midnight, and which we did. All that's true.
True.
But we had the president of the Speedway in the car with us. So
And they got pulled over by
Hall
4
pass.
cops, like within about
we never
a quarter
made it down
mile.
the backstretch when we got pulled over.
What I love the best about that story was Brett Griffin. The cops asked his name. He said Larry Bird.
And you know, Brett's a great guy.
He's
He
a great
is a
guy.
great guy.
All right, look, before we get to that, you know, we do like to do a leaning right and a turning left moment at the beginning of the podcast. So we're going to lean right first. Bill, I've got a couple things I want your opinion on, but you want to get your sponsor plug in for
Yes.
your leaning right moment?
Yes, we've had consistency here with the Leaning Right moment. Again, sponsored by the beautiful, the wonderful downtown in Farmville, Virginia, Charlie's Waterfront Cafe, owned and operated by Tom Graziano, my old roommate from Hamden, Sydney. A wonderful restaurant, great food, great fun, overlooking the Appomattox Creek or river. I get conflicting stories whether it's a creek or a river. It's small, so I'm guessing it might be a creek, but it flows very well. A criver. They're very good. And it's got great outdoor and indoor dining. Down below is the tasting cellar, which serves wine and wonderful food as well. Right next to the Greenfront Furniture shop, and it's right in an old warehouse, and they've really redone it really nicely. So if you're going to Farmville, you're going to visit with your kids, maybe at Longwood University or Hampton Sydney College, or you're just going down there to furniture shop or just to see the sights in Farm Vegas, go see Tom Graziano at Charlie's Waterfront Cafe. Good food, good fun, good people, a good guy, Tom Graziano.
All right. And Shep, you and Greg can chime in anytime you want to on these, but really the main platform or the main reason we started this podcast was to keep small business owners and people across the Commonwealth of Virginia updated on the progress of our lawsuit against the Commonwealth of Virginia as it relates to government overreach into small business with their unlawful, unconstitutional ban of skill games. Luckily, so far, we've had success. We've got an injunction that is in order right now, allowing small businesses across the Commonwealth at a time when they really, really need it to operate these machines legally and get the revenue from that. But now, Senator, my question to you, this podcast drops on Thursday. So let's say tonight, by midnight, it's my understanding is the deadline that the governor has to act on issues within the budget. So am I right on that? And if so, what is your gut feeling? What are you hearing? What are people saying on what the governor might do? What might not he do? How could these next couple of days affect all these hundreds of small businesses that are waiting to hear from the governor on this new skill game potential ban language they inserted into the budget a couple weeks ago?
Well, I think, you know, what you're seeing right now is a kind of a chess match between the General Assembly, which is always there. I've said in previous podcasts, it's kind of like cockroaches after a nuclear war. The General Assembly will still be there. Governors move on. This governor, who has had no political experience before being elected, but has done an excellent job navigating those waters and not being afraid to take on that leadership, take on those old senators and old House of Delegate members that have been there maybe a long time or maybe too long and have assumed certain powers and authority and like to flex it. So what you have right now is we're in the moment where a budget has passed out of the House and the Senate. That budget is now reviewed by the governor and the governor's people. He proposes amendments, vetoes things, red lines them with a pen. We have that red line item veto that they want so badly in the federal government, and they give it to the governor, but not the president of the United States. And so what we're going to see is some things come back, I think, in some change of priorities. His challenge is, though, is to work within what the priorities were of the two bodies, the House and the Senate, while at the same time making sure that his agenda gets passed or that his agenda is recognized. So I think we're going to see some amendments. Ultimately, I don't think, because I think the marijuana recriminalization was a deal that was made between the House and the Senate in exchange for the skill game language. The marijuana recriminalization for certain amounts of possession was a priority of the governor. So those kind of go hand in glove. So if he amends one, he may put at risk the other. And so that's in the negotiation. Unfortunately, it's horse trading. It's not something that you see, you know, always on the up and up, but the governor's been acting accordingly. And I think what we're going to have to do, Hermie, is we have to anticipate that he's not going to amend the budget to either extend the effective date from when he signs the budget and it goes into effect July 1st for the new language on skill to November when our court case is set. So what we're going to have to do is we're going to have to then go right back in. And I think the court, Attorney General's office, we all anticipated that this might happen. It's happened. So we set our court case off to November. And we may reset and just say, okay, let's have them both heard at that time, either by agreement or by the court order. If we have to amend the pleadings, we're planning on doing that. We've been working on that. So we're going to go in there and try to get something done. So all matters are heard by the November 2nd court date. One thing I'm going to tell you, Hermie, and I've said it before, I don't think anything that they wrote in that budget amendment, even though it radically changes criminal law, the criminal code in the Commonwealth of Virginia, which is almost unheard of and quite frankly, I think, unwise and sets a bad precedent. We've talked about that before. I think what the real problem is that what they put in there is a bunch of gobbledygook, a bunch of crap, and it doesn't affect our injunction, our current injunction at all. We just want to be clear, and we should have those two matters, one being SB 971, which we've talked about, the unconstitutional ban of skill games, put together with this language, which is also put into that part of the code section that we challenged. So I anticipate we're going to file something very quickly. We'll get either the court or the agreement of the defendants to move it to November, and we'll have it heard then. But, you know, again, I don't think ultimately, I've read that thing 15 times, that the way they define skill games and what is an appropriate reward does a dang thing in changing our lawsuit in terms of all of a sudden skill games on July 1st are going to be banned once again, like they were before. So I'm confident we're gonna do well, and that's where we are. The other things you'll see, I think, the budget amendment where they cut the funding for school choice scholarships for children that are at risk. The bill that I wrote some 8 years ago and got passed, I talked about it with saying that those Republicans might have voted for this budget, but you know what? They voted against the very thing that they say they want the most, which is school choice. I think you might see the governor put back that money in, and I think he may put some money in for his priorities, but I think it's kind of like a minefield. He's got to be very careful because, one, to put something in and have it rejected by the General Assembly, it's not a good look. So he's got to be careful on what he does and what victories he can take. But otherwise, that's where we are on the budget, and that's where we are with these skill games.
You two want to add anything to that before I go to my next question?
Well, I would just say, and you were talking about how important it is to small business. Just today, the Fed just raised interest rates again, 0.75 of a point. Gas is knocking $5 a gallon. You know, things are tight for the people across the Commonwealth and the country. And that is going to be crucial. Having that revenue stream is going to be crucial for small businesses to continue to thrive and grow throughout the Commonwealth.
Well, and you're exactly right, Shep. But I think what it really comes down to is that the world that we live in economically now is going to be radically different in January. And I don't mean in a good way. And we are cascading towards a recession. We are looking at even gas prices going higher than they are right now. We're looking at interest rates going higher, which then reduces buying power.
Sure.
People stop spending. That's going to hurt businesses and small businesses. And what it really does is it reduces significantly the tax revenue that the Commonwealth of Virginia will take in. Well, where else do you have a tap that you can open the spigot and $250 million or more a year can come out of it? There's not that kind of revenue source. There is in skill games. So I would not be surprised that the General Assembly in January, when it's looking at lower revenues, we just posted more revenues than we thought we collected here in Virginia. So that was good news. But that's reflective of the last quarter.
Right.
And now what you're going to see in these next two quarters is, I think, the Virginia General Assembly and the governor's office, who has expressed support for skill games and for gaming and gambling responsibly, I think they'll take another look, and ultimately a General Assembly and a politician looks more at the money than it does at the cause or what it thinks is right or wrong sometimes. Sometimes that's a good thing. Sometimes that's a bad thing. Here, it will be a good thing because it'll help small businesses when it's going to, again, need it most, just like in the pandemic, when revenues in those stores are going down.
And the state. It's going to give state
Exactly
revenue
right.
and the small business.
Exactly right.
I just don't, and looking at that, I have no dog in this fight. I don't own a business, but it just seems unconscionable for the state to say, okay, if you are a casino, you can operate these games. If you are a small business, you cannot operate the same type of games. And they're not even the same type of games. But if you're running a multi-million-dollar casino operation and you've got investors and backers and that sort of thing, I don't see why you're worried about the Quickie Mart across the street having
3 games.
Having 3 games in the corner. If they're that scared of 3, quarter games or dollar games across the street, maybe they're in the wrong business. But I don't think it's fair for them to say, okay, if you run a casino, you can do it, but if you're a small business, you can't do it. It just doesn't make sense to me.
And those that have really followed, and as we've come close to, we thought we were going to court back in May, and then they came out in the budget. So it's been more talk about it recently than it was in prior months. And most people that don't really follow it closely just think it's all to do about skill games, just skill games. And I've tried to explain to people the subject matter that we sued on is skill games, but the issue we're really fighting is simply the point that you're making, Greg, is government overreach, the government deciding who can operate something and who can't, given a government-enabled monopoly. And in my view, only my view, y'all can chime in to y'all's view, in my view, it circumvents the free market system. Every business that my dad built and every business that you see looking at these windows right here in South Hill was built on the free market system. You borrow money, you hire people, you train them, you try to keep your prices competitive.
You assume the risk.
And look, if somebody comes and builds a building beside me and takes all my business by using the same rules, that's my fault. But the government is not saying that.
FX presents The Old Man.
In Afghanistan, they called him the beast that eats everything.
You're about to drive this to a place you're not gonna like.
Academy Award winner Jeff Bridges.
You have no idea what I did, who I was.
Golden Globe winner John Lithgow.
This is not something to underestimate.
Amy Brenneman.
It matters to me that you make it out alive.
What I'm built for is defending things that need defending.
FX's The Old Man. All new Thursdays on FX. Stream on Hulu.
This episode is brought to you by State Farm. There are some monthly expenses you just can't get away from, like insurance. You might be looking at your expenses thinking you're going to have to pause on your DIY project, stop collecting vinyl, or even give up your daily coffee fix to have great insurance. Talk about a nightmare. It's a good thing State Farm knows everyone has a budget, and they have a range of options, like insuring your ride and your home with surprisingly great rates on both. With State Farm, you can also personalize your policy, so you get the coverage you need at a price that lets you keep up with your projects, add to your vinyl collection, and continue to enjoy your coffee habits. So forget about giving up what you love to have great insurance. For surprisingly great rates, like a good neighbor, State Farm is there. Call or go to statefarm.com for a quote today.
NMLS number 650884, Equal Housing Lender. New Year's resolutions are just hard to keep up with, but saving money is easy at SaveWithConrad.com. Wouldn't 2022 be easier with lower monthly payments? Get the best rate you've ever had, pay off your credit card debt, and even get the cash you need right now at SaveWithConrad.com. You don't need perfect credit or money out of your pocket to get started, and you can even skip your next 2 house payments at SaveWithConrad.com. Find out how much money you can save for free at SaveWithConrad.com.
Hi, folks. This is Hermie Sadler. Thanks for listening to our all-new podcast, Leaning Right and Turning Left with Sadler and the Senator. I hope you are enjoying the show as much as Senator Stanley and I enjoy bringing it to you. Whether you're a family traveling together or a truck driver hauling freight up and down the highway, I hope you will take the time to visit one of our Sadler Travel Plaza locations in Virginia and North Carolina. Sadler Travel Plaza locations are licensed dealer locations for Pilot Travel Centers. And we also carry Shell Motiva petroleum products for our four-wheel friends. We pride ourselves on providing one-stop shopping for service, food, and entertainment. Our food options include Five Guys Burgers and Fries, Quiznos, Dairy Queen, Hermie Sadler's Faux Show Bar and Grill, Victory Lane Restaurant, Hunt Brothers Pizza, Dunkin' Donuts, and much, much more. Our locations include Sadler Travel Plaza in South Hill, located off I-85 at exit 12. The Sadler Travel Plaza of Emporia, which is conveniently located on exit 11B off I-95, and Sadler Travel Plaza on Highway 58 in Suffolk. We also have our North Carolina location, Sadler Travel Plaza in Dunn, North Carolina. That's exit 75 off I-95. We appreciate all of our customers. And Bill and I appreciate you listening to Leaning Right and Turning Left with Sadler and the Senator, powered by Pace-O-Matic. For instance, as y'all know, Rosie's is coming to Emporia. Basically, what they're trying to do to me is say, Hermie, Rosie's is coming to Emporia, and when they do, that they're going to have an opportunity to have these games or similar games, and you are not. So therefore, not only are they going to get that business, they're going to get my restaurant business, they're going to get my bar business, they're going to get it all, not because they came in and took my business. They had the aid of a government. And again, the free market system is just is worth fighting for. And Bill, that brings me to last Saturday night. I was invited by a friend of mine and yours both, Carrie Allen, to go attend the Lincoln-Reagan dinner for the Republican Party of Chesterfield. And I was invited to go mingle and speak to a lot of people within the party and otherwise. One of the special guests there was our wonderful Lieutenant Governor, Winsome Earl Sears, who we've had on this podcast a couple of weeks ago. She actually came over and we started talking before she started speaking to the group. We started talking about the negative impacts of this inflation and rising cost that they're having on industries that I serve in my business, such as loggers, farmers, construction workers. Things are going out of sight. But go back to what I said a moment ago. My fight in my lawsuit is to protect the free market system. The people should decide what businesses fail and what businesses succeed. And I felt like our General Assembly, including some Republicans, by the way, but this budget came out with this language trying to ban these games, which I believe is circumventing the free market system. I say all that to come back to one of the things that Winsome Earl Sears did during her speech was she quoted the Republican creed, word for word. She quoted it to the people in attendance. While she was saying it, made me think, how could anybody argue with that? But it seems like it's kind of flies in the face of what they're trying to do with some of this budget language and some of the other actions they've taken. So I ask you, Bill, as a Republican senator in the state of Virginia, can you recite that and give me your thoughts on what it means as it relates to our case?
Well, I have it memorized, so I'm happy to recite it. And actually, I'm looking at my phone. Just thank God this is not being filmed. But no, it's a very important thing that I think we recite at every Republican committee meeting throughout the Commonwealth of Virginia, because it's important. And I've used it, quite frankly. I've asked questions of liberals based on the Republican creed, and they all agree with you. And then you stick out your hand and say, welcome to the Republican Party. And they go, what? And you show them the Republican creed, and suddenly it changes. But it's very simple and very direct, but very powerful. The Republican creed is, we believe that the free enterprise system is the most productive supplier of human needs and economic justice. That all individuals are entitled to equal rights, justice, and opportunities, and should assume their responsibilities as citizens in a free society. That fiscal responsibility and budgetary restraints must be exercised at all levels of government. That the federal government must preserve individual liberty by observing constitutional limitations. And that peace is best preserved through a strong national defense. And that a faith in God, as recognized by our founding fathers, is essential to the moral fiber of this nation. That's the creed.
Can you read the first part again?
Sure. I think that's the part you like the best.
Absolutely.
That the free enterprise system is the most productive supplier of human needs and economic justice.
So explain to me how anybody on the Republican side of the aisle could or would be talked into going along with something that, in my view, you tell me if I'm wrong, goes against what that says.
I cannot. And in fact, when you couple it with the second part of that creed, which says that all individuals, and individuals we mean both small businesses, small business owners, and individual citizens, are entitled to equal rights, equal justice, and equal opportunities, and should assume their responsibilities under that as free citizens of a free society. So both of those fit together in, I think, justifying exactly what you're saying.
So forget the lawsuit, forget my standing as a small business owner, forget Shep, works over here, and Greg's worked his whole life in small businesses and small communities, but just as a citizen of the Commonwealth of Virginia, when you look at what's being done and what this, not just on the state level, but let's just on the federal level too, what's going on, does that creed does it only mean something to certain people when it's convenient? Or I mean, how do you justify they're not following the Republican creed, in my opinion? So tell me where I'm wrong.
Well, again, I can't justify it. I can only explain what I think I know, and that is that our government, Republicans inside of it as well as Democrats, tend to pick winners and losers, tend to find causes that they like and things that they don't like, and they stick that way to it. And in this case, I think that's what you're seeing. I think overall, a great many, but not all, of those legislators have decided that when we were opening the doors to gambling in Virginia, which had been firmly shut for centuries, except for skill games. Skill games had always been allowed since the very beginning. But now they were persona non grata. That they chose to follow the path which casinos demand, which is a monopoly. Casinos, when they come in, they will tell you even when they're looking at VFWs, when they're holding bingo halls, they believe that's a threat to them, and they want to eliminate them. The problem is that usually doesn't occur. Bingo halls still occur in VFWs across the nation.
Nonprofits.
Even in areas where casino gambling is legalized, not profits doing charitable gaming. And they've been attacking charitable gaming in the Commonwealth of Virginia and been very successful because they see it as a threat. When they come in, they want to sweep the field away of any competition, even the smallest of competition, which small business owners in skill games are. That's their model. That's their business model. And the problem is when you then open the doors to gambling, as we have, to casino gambling, to sports betting, as we've now done, then you have to play by their rules, or they really pound and pound and pound on that politician, that elected official, that we're going to be great for you, we're going to get all this tax revenue for you, but you have to play the game our way. And playing the game our way is eliminating all competition, eliminating all local competition, eliminating all Virginians' participation other than being at the craps table, but not having a gaming instrument in your store. That's how they run. And quite frankly, when they eliminate all these skill games in convenience stores, just like this Sadler Travel Plaza here in South Hill, what you'll find is they eliminate all that competition, then they'll go, hey, to the legislature, to buff up our business and to drive people to our casinos, which are placed in, believe me, in lower economic areas, we need to put skill games maybe in convenience stores, but we'll run them. They'll be our skill games. They'll be our video slot machines.
The smoke and mirrors.
And they monopolize that which is in their minds evil, and they have convinced the politician that they're wrong. It's wrong only because it's not their game. It's not Bally's game.
Now I got a question for you.
Sure.
It's never good to try to legislate through the budget, but that's essentially what they're doing. Is that correct?
That's exactly right. They've done it. Occasionally you'll see some quirks here and there, but what they've done is taken a bill that never saw the light of day, never was filed in the General Assembly during the 2022 session, never got vetted by a committee, never was put out for the public for it to comment or come into our committees and debate, never got voted out of a committee, never got voted out of a floor, and then sent to the other chamber for its consideration. And so it's not just legislating through the budget. It's taking what is supposed to be in our process of legislation
and eliminating that
completely, to where now legislation is done by 3 or 4 people, not by 140 members of the House and Senate, and certainly not by the public, and certainly not transparent and done in an open forum.
So you feel that you're right on this issue?
Totally.
100% right.
Absolutely.
So,
I mean, look, Shep, I'm against gambling.
Right.
I've always voted
and you don't
against
even play
gambling.
the games.
I am reminded, even the people that make these machines, they like to remind me that when they came into my office, I said, I hate what you do. I hate who you are. I hate that this is coming to Virginia, and I'm against it. And that was skill games. But when I saw what was happening, there is something that if it walked through the door, it would have been, but I hate unfairness more.
I was going to say, that's to Hermie's point.
And that's when Hermie
bigger
came
than bigger than skill games.
And Hermie and I talked about it. And for me, fundamental fairness is the cornerstone, the foundation for a good and just society.
So when you know
and
you're
that's
right,
being violated right now.
When you know you're right, how do you continue the fight legislatively to keep that fight going for the side of good? Because I'm faced with some of these same issues here locally. I know that I may not have the best idea, but I have a good idea.
Right.
How do you keep going at the state level?
Well, personally, and I've said this before, I can't. because I have a stake in the outcome. I don't have a stake in the outcome. I don't profit from skill games being in Sadler stores or these small businesses stores, but I represent Hermie, and by proxy represent not just Hermie, but for all the people that Hermie is standing up for, all the small business owners that have these legal, legitimate skill games in their convenience stores, in their truck stops, in their restaurants, in their bars. And because of that, then I do what's called R36. I abstain from any involvement, and that's not only voting on anything that has to do with gambling, but it also has being involved in the conversation in the legislature. So mine is purely the rails of the judiciary. So that's where my confidence is that we'll solve this. The way that we solve this is how we've done it already. We won and got an injunction in the circuit court. Big Casino appealed, filed amicus briefs. Even Janet Howell and the minority leader on my side filed an amicus brief. They lost. Supreme Court said court was right. Now we go for the final hearing, and now we have even another issue. And when we win that, then the General Assembly has to look and say, okay, there is absolutely no way that we can make, because it's unconstitutional, skill games illegal. So what should we do? And that will get them to the tax and regulate process.
Right.
And I think that's it. Now, for the individual like a Hermie Sadler or a convenience store owner or some citizen that just says this is not fair, picking winners and losers, this is overreach by the government, then they call those legislators and they say, don't you dare do this. Even if they're against gambling, this sets the table that if they can do this here, they're going to take another one of your rights away that you do care about.
And I just think that's
the fight on the grassroots level that has to happen.
I want to move on. I got some good news for you, Senator.
I always love good news.
My turning left moment. I want my friend Greg Thrift to describe in detail the trip. You know, we played the commercial earlier with The Rock. Greg decided, I don't know why, to ride with me down to South Florida.
Now wait, before you get to your turning left moment, I'm not done with my leaning right, because I have some good news for you, Hermie Sadler.
Oh, do you want to finish your good news, or let me give you the rest of my good news? We can wait on the story.
Yeah, this will take 2 seconds because I think it affects you and me equally.
Okay.
From the pressure that we've applied and the things that I have participated in, which was regulating those industries like in Vigo or in Cumberland, Virginia, that breed dogs, beagles specifically, for experimentation. I have 2 dogs that I bought from there to keep from being experimented on. Hermie's got 2 dogs. Okay. They're wonderful dogs. There's a video on his Facebook page of them knocking him over, and he's in the buff. It's one of the funniest things I've ever seen in my life.
Brief nudity.
The buff part was the funny part.
It's PG-13, I think. But so the federal government has also kind of interceded. We passed 4 bills that I wrote to regulate them. To if they ever had any USDA violations ever again, they're shut down. If they don't sell the dogs or they're outside of what would be the selling period that is feasible for experimentation, they must adopt them out to our local releasing agencies. Well, now Envigo has announced, because of all that pressure and the federal pressure from the federal court, that they're shutting down the Cumberland plant.
Oh, that's awesome news.
And so there will be no more breeding dogs for experimentation.
I love my beagles.
I love mine too.
I know you do too. Haley loves them too.
They're great.
They fit in.
So that's good news. Now, our challenge is, Hermie, and I think, I'd love to use some of your star power for that pressure. But I have put out a statement along with Jennifer Boysko and Rob Bell. Rob's a delegate. Jennifer's a senator. They worked with me on these pieces, very important pieces of legislation, that they should not pack up these dogs and go to the next state that allow them to do this. They need to adopt them out or sell them.
That's right.
And so I stand ready with my office, and Brad Tuesday stands ready to make sure that we find forever loving homes for those dogs.
Getting that message out.
But a great outcome. They were never going to be able to live underneath the guise of our regulatory process. It was bone crushing. And quite frankly, in the 21st century, we should not be breeding dogs, man's best friend, and doing horrible experiments. Just by way of example, Dr. Fauci was taking these very dogs, blowing like parasites into their face, their nose, their ears, and their eyes to get them completely sick, and then using horribly painful experiments to try to cure them, and then putting those dogs down. There is no reason. There was no reason. There's no justification. So good riddance in Vigo. I tried to work with them, and look, they worked very well with us in trying to adopt out the 500 dogs that were overbred during the pandemic. But they need to find a different way to try to make scientific strides.
Congratulations to you and everybody that brought attention to it.
Thank you, brother. Now I am done with my Leaning Right moment brought to you by Charlie's Waterfront Cafe.
You've already got one plug in for Graziano. So I want to let Greg do my turning left moment. But what I want to tell you is I have now I have 2 meetings set up for people that have reached out to me to discuss potential long-term, fairly lucrative turning left sponsorship opportunities.
Yeah, this is where my wife always says, yeah, I heard this before. Let's see some results.
But I'm just letting you know that I got it.
Memory makers will not be making an appearance on
Memory makers don't hold a candle to what I'm getting.
Is that right?
Wait a minute, Nathan.
Whoa, hold on.
Terry, wait a minute. Edit that out.
Look, Terry cut me off just like she cuts him off.
Whew. You notice how I had proposed that we did today's podcast at Memory Makers and that was shut down? I mean, I always wanted to be across the street from Butts and Butts, but notice we did not get to go to Memory Makers today. I guess her clientele would kind of be a little taken aback by what would be sitting there looking at
You set the table for him to do that, and he never...
Yeah.
Well, you told me don't take advantage of your friends. I was trying not to do that. I actually got a little piece of Butts and Butts in my car.
Do you? I mean,
we got to leave it there.
Well, just make sure there are no children in the parking lot when you show it to us.
So we played the commercial with The Rock earlier. We've talked about on previous podcasts about Rock doing commercials and this and that and the other. On one of the trips that we were taking, what I would do is every so often I'd take a car, a new Cadillac every time, take it to South Florida, switch, and then drive back. On one of these trips, Greg, you might need to help me. How did it even come about that you went with me on this trip? Because we were going to take a white diamond pearl, fanciest Cadillac, just come out with this new model and go pick up another one. But the
problem is you had left The Rock a Cadillac DTS.
Right.
And he couldn't fit in it.
Right.
And
too small.
Yeah, exactly. He said he loved the car, but getting in and out of it, he had to fold in like a pretzel.
Yeah.
And so you called me and you said, "What are you doing Tuesday?" which is how I wound up here today. He said, "Are you in South Hill today?" And I said, "I can be." Anyway, so you called me and said, "Would you like to go to Florida?" And I didn't even know why. And I said, "Sure, odie." So anyway, I said, "Sure, we'll go to Florida." And that's when I found out we were going to go and deliver a car to The Rock.
Yeah.
And can I tell them the windshield story?
All of it.
Okay, all right. Okay, so this was quite an eventful trip. I want to say that it was Lumberton, North Carolina.
Yeah.
Construction zone on the
We're
interstate.
driving. Do you remember? I knew it was another Cadillac. But
it was a brand new. It was bigger than a DTS, and I don't.
You sold Fords. You sold Fords
White
anyway,
diamond pearl. I remember that.
I drive a wheelbarrow, so I don't know Cadillacs, but it was bigger than that. But it was one of the most beautiful and best riding automobiles I've ever had my fanny in. And we were going down the interstate, and this thing is like a dream, and it is so new. It is brand new, and I mean, just released. The model just released. We're going through Lumberton. There was a construction zone, and a rock flies up and hits the windshield as we're delivering this car. How appropriate that a rock would damage the Rock's car. Anyway, so I said, well, we'll just deliver the car and he can get it fixed at his leisure. Oh, no. We can't take a damaged car to the Rock. And so literally, Hermie is on the phone trying to find a windshield for this brand new Cadillac. And apparently there's one on the East Coast. Literally, they hadn't released there was no parts inventory for this car. If the hood fell off of it, we'd had to finish the run with no hood. So anyway, apparently, it was Daytona. I think that we found a windshield for this thing. And, we're just starting into South Carolina.
So we took a detour and stopped in Daytona for an extra day to get a new windshield put in this brand new car.
Yes. So anyway, so we got the windshield and we got that put in and we continued down. Was it Plantation, Florida?
Was this during spring break since you went to Daytona? Yeah. Was that kind of convenient? Wasn't it?
Sketchy.
No.
Little sketchy.
Y'all just wait till we talk about the trip home.
Yeah, that's where the handcuffs are involved. So anyway.
Wow.
So hopefully it's before 8:00 p.m.
So we
can talk about it.
We get all the way down to Davie, Florida, and this is the day that The Rock came back to America. You don't remember this. He came back to America from filming The Mummy Part 2.
Is that right?
Which they filmed in Europe. And see, you don't pay attention to these things. Anyway, he told us the whole story. He just got back. He was exhausted, but he invited us to dinner.
Yeah.
So we went out to dinner with The Rock and his wife, Danny.
Yeah.
Called him Dewey. She said, and he did the most wonderful thing of it, because, I mean, we were literally sitting at the table, and person after person after person after person would come up asking for an autograph. And he did the classiest thing I've ever seen. The Rock would personally engage with every person that came up, and he said, as you can see, we're having dinner with my friends. I'll be happy to sign whatever you want if you can wait until we're finished with our meal. When we're finished with our meal, I'll be glad to sign whatever it is you've got. And he did. There was a line out the door, when he finished his meal. And he.
I do remember. I think we ate at a place called the Big Cheese.
It was a pizza joint, but it was really, really good.
Yeah.
And he paid. So anyway, that's what I really remember. So anyway, that being said, we left we left that night coming back.
I don't remember.
Yes, I remember.
Sounds like that was one of the few times The Rock paid with Hermie. When they got pizza came through.
Yeah, well, we gave him a brand new Cadillac, which at least he could do is.
So we dropped him off and we picked up his DTS.
Yes.
And we were driving that back to Virginia.
Now, let's set the stage with that. The DTS was a wonderful car, but because it was his, he had blacked the windows out like limousine tint, which he has to.
It had a gold package on it. He put all this gold trim and stuff on it.
It was
the Rock, by all means.
It had been rocked up. Anyways, but it literally, you could not see in it. You could barely see out of it. So we're coming back through Daytona again.
Yeah.
Literally at midnight.
Spring break.
I hope not. I don't remember the spring break part, but anyway.
Or bike week.
Well,
it was one or the other.
Trying to spice this up a little bit.
We were on the internet. We were on the interstate.
The Disney version.
We were on the interstate, and I was asleep. Hermie was driving because he's professional at that, So he's driving, and all of a sudden, Hermie says, "We're getting pulled over." Midnight, Daytona. Here we are, and so
in a white diamond pearl DTS. With limo tint and a gold package.
And a gold package.
And a dealer tag. At all.
Right. And a dealer tag with one
screw that's hanging crooked.
And 4 pounds of cocaine in the trunk.
What's suspicious about that? Exactly. So you know what they were thinking? I'm thinking, boy, I wonder how tight the handcuffs are going to be. So this state trooper pulls up behind us, and he walks up, and as you know how they tell you, don't get out of the car. And they'll yell that at you.
Tell all my clients that, Cooperate, put your hands on the wheel.
But what did I do?
Let me tell you,
I can only imagine.
As this Florida state trooper is adjusting his Smokey Bear hat and walking up beside our vehicle, Hermie swings open the driver's side door and throws his flip-flops out on the street.
I was going to step into him.
And he's putting his shoes on. As then the
seemed
Florida,
like a good idea.
The Florida
and then he made his fingers into a gun like.
At taser point, we were instructed not to exit the vehicle. And so Hermie gets back in the vehicle, and the guy comes back up. I think he did finally let you out of the vehicle, and he was talking to Hermie, and he said, got his name and looked at his license and everything, and he says, Hermie Sadler. He said, "Are you one of them racing saddlers?" Swear. Hermie says, "Yes, I am. As a matter of fact, I'm a driver." And he says, "I hate NASCAR." My daddy was a state trooper, and he had to work them NASCAR races. I hated every one of them. He said, and now I'm a state trooper, and I got to work them NASCAR races, and I hate NASCAR. And I thought, we're going to prison. We are. This is the end. This is where my life ends. So anyway, Hermie schmoozed.
When you gonna get to the point of you trying to explain to him why the windows were tinted? Because that's the next thing.
I was gonna leave that part out, but I'll go there. So anyway, so the state trooper says he takes out a meter and puts it on the side window of this car, and he says, "You realize that the tint on this window is too dark."
No, sir, I did not.
Well, apparently that's not an option here. You're driving the car.
No, that's when you run.
Exactly.
Actually, that's when you take off.
I've seen cops. That doesn't end well. So I tried to. Hermie said, "Well, this car belonged to The Rock." And which the trooper says, "I don't care who it belongs to.
I hate wrestling."
The tint on the windows is too dark. And I said, "But officer, you don't understand. He's The Rock. He has to tint his windows this way because let's just say he's driving down the street, pulls up at a stoplight, and the windows aren't tinted, and a small child from across the street looks up and sees The Rock driving a car. what's that child naturally going to do? He's going to jump in the street and run over to that car, and in the process, he's going to get squashed like a bug, and the rock doesn't want to be responsible for dead children in the middle of the road. That's why the windows are tinted.
Wow. He was
And
trying
that's
not to get
exactly
searched.
what he said. Hermie, did you introduce Greg to the trooper as the rock stunt double? Because you could have back then. You could have passed as his stunt double.
No, I do know this. It's like usually, you think that you shouldn't say something, and I usually do that right after I've said something, and that was one of those moments.
That happens to me a lot on Monday nights once a month.
I was mid sentence, and I went, "Where are you going with this?"
And I hate children.
I hate wrestling.
But that whole trip should have been an omen to how that was going to work out. Brand new car. We break a windshield on the way down
with a rock.
Have all that with a rock, and then I get pulled over, and I end up getting like 4 tickets on the way home for multiple violations.
So you would think we would never go anywhere again.
And that's, ladies and gentlemen, how they ended up at the strip club.
Now it's midnight.
That's how we ended up in California.
So that was a trip. Greg did end up going to another trip with me. I was 1995. I was driving for DeWalt. They asked me to go to the
Long Beach
Grand Prix to do an appearance for them, and I didn't want to go by myself. So who do I call?
I was busy.
Apparently, I was way down the list. But anyway, so Hermie says, "What are you doing Thursday?" So I said, "Nothing. Where are we going?" He said, "Long Beach, California." I said, "Okay." So apparently my career was in a stall, so I had nothing to do. We flew out there on a midnight flight.
I remember thinking we'd never get there.
You
looked at it one time and saw water. And something said
I thought we passed California. Somebody should wake the pilot and tell him we need a U-turn. But we got out there.
What kind of car did we rent?
I saw water in his bathroom all over my pants.
At midnight, we were standing in a Hertz rent-a-car office, and you were explaining to somebody who barely spoke English that the only vehicle that we would accept would be a red convertible. And apparently,
windows.
And they found one. So
On a convertible.
One the rock would red.
So we were there. I remember thinking, I don't know how big this is going to be, because this is a Long Beach Grand Prix. You were driving, was it Busch Series?
Yeah,
then?
Busch Grand National Series,
right. So I was thinking, do the F1 people really follow Busch? So anyway, we got to the venue for the autograph signing, and literally they were around the building.
They knew Hermie was there. Yeah. The Herminator.
See?
Yeah.
The autograph
Star power.
The autograph
Star
session lasted 2 hours. They paid us everything for 2 days.
And unlike the Rock, he said, "Get away from me, kid. I don't sign for you. Nothing."
Yeah. So I went and did that. But the most memorable part of that trip, this trip was at the height of the O.J. Simpson trial. The trial was going on.
Right in the middle of it.
And so, Greg and I decided on some of our off time, we've got to go figure this out.
Which was most of the time that we had an autograph session for 2 hours, and other than that, we were completely unsupervised. which there was the problem.
Did you rent a white Bronco and do it?
No, but
in a red convertible.
But we went to
very slowly down the hill.
The Luna restaurant was the restaurant.
Mezzaluna.
Yeah, Mezzaluna was where they
So we
did.
had to go there.
So we had to go there.
That's where Ron Goldman went, and
he was a waiter there.
He was the waiter there. Exactly right.
Left her glass.
Did we eat there?
We ate there. Yes,
we ate there.
Yeah, I think I still have indigestion, but I was nervous the whole time. And then we left and went to the apartment.
We went to Nicole's apartment. I mean, we saw the crime scene.
Yes, and then we went to O.J. Simpson's house.
Yeah.
O.J. Simpson's house. I was shocked because it was right on the street, and there was a wall, like the sidewalk, and then a big wall. You couldn't see over it, but there was a gate, and literally, I'm Southside Virginia boy. I ain't never been nowhere. I walked up to the gate. A voice says, "Back away from the gate." I thought, okay, so they have handcuffs in California too. So anyway,
where were we at when people kept riding by?
That was at Nicole's
calling us
apartment.
losers.
At Nicole's apartment, and I can understand. You hear the story. She apparently was brutally murdered, and nobody saw her. I can understand that, because literally the walkway up to her apartment was completely covered with bushes and shrubs, and it was almost like a tunnel.
Yeah.
And I remember standing there looking up in there thinking, you could have, a Greyhound bus parked up in there and nobody would be able to see it. It was.
So, Greg, where were you on the night that Nicole was murdered? This seems to be just a little too familiar.
I was in Florida getting frisked on the side of the interstate.
Were you wearing some Bruno Mali shoes?
That's one of the things I remember. We're standing out there. Actually, we're thinking ourselves, we got to call Johnny Cochran. We got this thing figured out. But we're sitting there looking at this, and people are riding by,
literally
cussing at us.
Oh, yeah.
Y'all go home, you bunch of blinking losers.
What are you doing standing here? It's like,
go home. We hate, people were tired of people being
right.
This is probably 6 months.
To our credit,
after
it wasn't just us. And it wasn't like we were standing there selling T-shirts. You know what I'm saying? It was a public street.
Right.
But I remember Greg looking at me. He says, Hermie, if it's all the same to you, I assume we get the hell out of here.
That's exactly what I said. If it's all the same to you, I think it's time for us.
We went and tracked the mileage between this place and that place and the other thing, and we had.
Did you solve the crime?
Yeah. What was your conclusion?
Yeah.
The conclusion was, what my conclusion was before he ever got there. Of course he did it. Cato Kalin heard him running to the air conditioner on the backside of the guest house. Of course he did it.
That's all you need.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, who couldn't believe Cato Kalin?
Yeah, exactly. I was literally at OJ's house trying to see the guest house to see how high that air conditioner was, if OJ had run into it or not.
I'm so shocked that you guys got called losers and were told to go home.
But
shocked.
Greg, the glove didn't fit.
If it doesn't acquit, you must acquit.
Yeah.
If it doesn't fit, you must acquit.
So
yes.
That's amazing.
Hermie and I did a racing radio show
in the driver's seat
nationwide. Yeah. Okay, and I need to talk to.
Was this pre-internet?
No. I guess no.
How did you get nationwide?
It was pre-puberty for me, so it had to be pre-internet.
It was on the ham radio back then.
Yeah, it was.
I just remember the tagline was "In the driver's seat with Hermie Sadler" on the On Track Radio Network.
Yes, because what we did was we used phone lines and we fed it almost like football games.
But on the Virginia News Network.
That's who put it out. Yeah, that's who distributed it.
Yeah.
But we sent it out to different various radio stations.
We had guests.
We did the first show. I need to apologize to Joe Nemechek's wife. Because the very first show, to tell you how much planning went into this, you and I were at Richmond Raceway, and I was trying desperately to line up guests on a radio show that nobody had ever heard of. And so I found Joe Nemechek's wife, Andrea. Correct.
Yeah.
Okay, Andrea. Very nice lady.
Mm-hmm.
Extremely nice. And I'll never forget how sweet she was. And I asked her, and she says, "Oh, sure, he'll do it. So I said, well, he's going to have to call in on Monday night. We had 2 guests a night. And he was going to call in at 7:30. So I gave him the call, the line to call. Well, I don't know.
We'll call him back.
Okay. Oh, yeah. Okay. So anyway,
it's Mr. Excitement, Phil Stefanelli calling us while we're doing our podcast.
He can't be listening because we're not live. But anyway, so I forget exactly where I was. So
Andrea says he'll do it.
Says he'll do it. So I gave her the number to have him call at 7:30. All right, so at 7:30, I'm waiting for them to call. We had our first guest on, and for the life of me, I can't remember who our first guest was. But anyway,
if I lined it up, it was probably Dale Earnhardt.
It probably or Dale Earnhardt Sr.
Yeah,
but
name dropper.
At some point, I kept thinking, why isn't Joe Nemechek calling in? So we kept the first guest on, and we kept him on, and we kept him on, and it got to be like 7:40. And Joe had never called in. So we kept the guest going, and Hermie's trying to figure out something else to talk to this person about. And 7:45. Finally, at 7:50, it hit me. I gave Andrea Nemechek and the first guest the same phone number. He had been trying to call since 7:30 on a line that was continuously busy.
Good job, Greg.
And cussing his wife, I am sure. Yeah. You gave me this number. Anyway, so when I realized...
First show blues.
Apparently. So
first show blue.
And here comes Brad Tuesday to the rescue.
Yeah.
So
how the mighty have fallen.
So we ditched the first guest, and so we had Joe Nemechek on for about a 4-minute segment.
You'll get a heartbreak.
Yeah, exactly. But I felt to this day I need to apologize to her and to him.
How long did that show run?
What day is it?
Oh, it's still going.
No. What day did it start?
Oh, okay.
We did that show for about 9 months, if I'm not mistaken, or maybe a year.
Pretty good. Yeah. We did for the whole season.
Senator, I know you're wet, but is your seat sticky?
Yes.
I keep sticking to my seat.
Yes.
Y'all,
So it's not you.
If you had us amendment makers, we wouldn't have this problem.
Don't try to lift your elbow either, because you might lose some skin.
They make a
stickiness on the table.
We need to
Travel Plaza.
They make a cream for that.
we need to take a break. And then we'll come back and get into.
We're going to do some Hermitology, which we've launched on Facebook,
which I am reluctantly going along with, and Hermie's Answer Machine.
We just keep piling it on.
And then we're going to talk about your wrestling career.
That'll take a while.
I know.
He's still got the scars.
Before we go to break, I want to remind everybody that Pace-O-Matic is an entertainment company which develops gaming software that players love to play and can use their skills to win every time. Plus, these games of skill provide vital revenue to keep family-owned businesses like bars, restaurants, convenience stores, and truck stops thriving. We appreciate Pace-O-Matic, Senator Stanley, for giving us this platform to keep people abreast of what's going on with us and our lawsuit and other things that affect everyday lives of Virginians and people across the country. Our listenership and viewership is growing, and we continue to try to do new things to do that. So after the break, we'll try out for the first time, what's it called?
Hermitology. That is the
Hermitology.
It's the science according to Hermie.
I thought it was studying snakes.
And then, so we're going to ask you questions basically of stuff, and you can explain what it is.
Right.
In only
if I know it.
If you know it. Or if not, make something up.
Yeah, okay.
And this should be something that you know. We're starting off easy. We'll get to the hard stuff later in future episodes. And then we have on our Facebook page, Leaning Right and Turning Left on Facebook, where our fans have been calling in, leaving messages on Hermie's old-fashioned answer machine. We're going to play them back. And exactly that. And we're going to play them back, and we're going to see what Hermie's response is.
Is that the one with the turn knobs and all the twist knobs?
I got one request, that much like the show Jeopardy, if I need a lifeline, Brad Tuesday is my lifeline.
That's a smart. He's a big nerd. He was crushing it with the ladies at UVA. Can't you tell? Crushing it.
So I go along with it, but if I need to go to the bullpen, Brad Tuesday's my guy.
Amen.
All right. Appreciate y'all listening. This is Leaning Right and Turning Left with Sadler and the Senator. We'll be right back.
This Pride, everyone's coming through for the Trevor Project on YouTube Shorts. Join us! Create a short showing how you're stepping up for Pride using the hashtag YouTube Pride Challenge. Come through for Pride on YouTube Shorts. Visit youtube.com/pride.
Time to tell you about something I'm super passionate about: protecting your family. Yes, this is a life insurance ad for GoliathLife.com, but to me, this is really about peace of mind. Think about insurance for a second. We all get medical and auto insurance, yet we never even know if we're going to have a need for it. Let me let you in on a little secret. You need life insurance. We're all going to die. Now, as you let that reality sink in, think about what would happen if your family stopped having your income tomorrow. If you don't have a plan for that, you need to visit GoliathLife.com, and I mean right now. And just personally, I've lost 2 friends in their 40s this past year and a half, and I don't even want to think about what their families would be going through had they not had life insurance. If you don't have it, get it. Protect your family. And I suggest you go to GoliathLife.com, because they've made the process of getting affordable life insurance super easy. Goliath Life streamlines the life insurance process by allowing you to get quotes for more than 20 carriers within minutes. And you'll pick your terms and payments to fit your budget. You pick your price, you start the online application immediately, and even schedule the medical exam to come to you. And I've done it. They sent someone to my office. I skipped the phone calls, the paperwork, and the crazy invasive conversations. Goliath Life makes buying life insurance simple. There's no hidden fees, no upsells, no hassle, hell, not even a phone call. Goliath Life is life insurance in your hands on your time. Get multiple quick quotes right now from the comfort of your own home and begin your application in a few easy clicks right now at GoliathLife.com.
Hey, this is Bill Stanley, Hermie Sadler sidekick on this podcast. But when I'm not in Richmond at the Capitol or doing this podcast, my real job for the past 27 years is as a trial attorney with the Stanley Law Group. Here at the Stanley Law Group, we represent our clients in every courthouse in the Commonwealth. No problem is too small for us to solve. No case is too big for us to win. Whether it's criminal charges, traffic offenses, civil disputes, litigation matters of any sort, we handle it all. We make sure we treat every client like family because they are to us. Your problem is our problem. Your success is our success because we hate to lose more than we love to win. And believe me, we win a lot. Don't believe me? Go ask Hermie. I'm his favorite lawyer. Give us a call at 540-721-6028 and let us help you. Or visit our website at www.vastanleylawgroup.com. At the Stanley Law Group, we'll make sure that we are the lawyers that you swear by and not at. And we're back. We're here at the Sadler Travel Plaza in South Hill, Virginia. And I'm still Bill Stanley, Virginia State Senator, and I'm still leaning right.
Still?
Still. Why not?
And I'm Hermie Sadler, and I'm turning left, and I have to admit, I have no idea what I'm getting ready to get myself into.
Well, this is something that both our staff at Podcast Heat have put together. You may see, if you go to our Facebook page, you're going to see HermieTology. Hermie in a lab coat. It's a great visual to see a young Hermie there with other scientists.
I look scientifically
slim.
And the premise of this is to get into, and we're going to start light, but as we go with this bit, we're going to get into some other things, and we're going to ask what your opinion is. But this segment, not brought to you, but it could be sponsored by somebody. So keep your channels open.
Let me just tell you something.
He said he's got it.
I got 2 big fish on the hook.
Humdingas.
Well, I'm going to say in order to fulfill our contractual obligations with Lee and Harry Talley, HermieTology is brought to you by the Coalition to Draft Hermie Sadler for State Senate in the 17th Senate District. And
That's
we love
a real thing?
Yes, we love Lee. And
but I saw Lee Saturday night at the dinner in Chesterfield, and what a great Virginian.
All right, so now we're going to roll out. Here's HermieTology. Here's the drop-in.
Gather around, boys and girls. That's straight from the basement of the science building. It's time for HermieTology.
HermieTology, everybody. All right, Hermie, we're going to ask you some questions. What do you think of that?
That was...
from the basement of the science building. It's HermieTology.
So you just gave away who did it.
No, I'm just imitating it. I don't know who did it.
That was something.
So HermieTology, because it's the world according to Hermie, and sometimes Hermie can explain things that we don't know, and maybe in racing, and this one will be in racing. Yeah, and maybe he can just make something up.
I can even explain things that I don't know.
Okay.
Crystal clear, right?
Well, maybe we should dive into that. So our first episode of HermieTology, a lot of what I've had asked to me is, what are the differences between a lot of race cars? You hear race car drivers talk about, they've talked about the next gen cars, but they've also talked about other types of cars that they've raced in. And I'm sure Hermie has raced in many of these, and maybe he can tell us what the differences are in some of these race cars. Okay, so I'm going to give you...
I'll try, but I will admit in the beginning, outside of NASCAR racing, I know very little about race cars.
Okay, all right. Well,
including go-karts.
I know go-karts, and I know NASCAR-type cars, but Indy cars, dirt cars, wing sprints, anything like that, I know very little about.
All right. Well, see, you're already kind of trying to lower expectations here, but we're going to give it a shot anyway.
I'm being honest, which is something that's important on this podcast.
So when race car drivers talk about midgets, what are they talking about?
Midgets are what I refer to as the roll cage cars, big tires on the back, little tires on the front that you would see racing, back in the day at IRP, say Tony Stewart, Jeff Gordon, that brand of that group of drivers came up running midgets. But
is that the car with the big wing?
They have wings on the top, kind of a swoop tail in the back, starts wide, gets narrow, and big tires on the back, little tires on the front. I'm mostly familiar with those that raced on asphalt. I know there's a version of them that races on dirt, but I have watched through the years people like Tony Stewart race those cars. Jeff Gordon did some of that back in the Thursday night ESPN days when you could watch the midgets race at Indianapolis Raceway Park and those kind of things. But as far mechanically speaking, as far as weight and horsepower and things of that nature, I don't know anything.
Okay, so what's the difference between a midget and a sprint car?
I can't define that.
We're going to have to change this to Stump the Herminator.
We're going to get professional help.
All right, next question. Legends cars. What are Legends cars?
Legends cars, to me, in a lot of ways, it's kind of a glorified go-kart with a body on it. You see Legends cars race at a lot of Saturday night racetracks. They do it at Charlotte Motor Speedway on the quarter mile. A good way to get, and I've drove some Legends cars back in the days at South Boston Speedway. Actually, my first owner that owned a Legends car that I drove was John Isley, also known as John Boy and Billy, the John Boy and Billy radio show. But John Boy owned a Legends car, had number 98.9 on it, sponsored by Bojangles. And I drove his Legends car at South Boston some back in the mid-1990s. But I look at it as they have radial tires on them. So the tires last for a long time, a decent amount of horsepower. But I look at them more like other than you sit upright in them, I look at them as a go-kart with big Michelin groove tires on them. It teaches you a little bit about, racing and but has a body on it too.
And the body kind of looks like one of those old moonshine cars.
That's right. That's right.
40s
and really,
style.
It's a great way to get some experience in a full-bodied car, because you just mentioned, midgets. They're open wheels. They are way different to drive than wheels when you've got fenders on them, and you can get closer and bump and root people out of the way with, in a midget and a sprint car. As far as that goes, anything that's open wheel, you got to be real careful about bumping tires, because you'll get upside down and flip it in a hurry.
So let's go talk about cars that you and I own together. The open wheel modified.
Yep. It's not a whole lot of material in those cars. They're known. Open wheel modified cars are known for being very, very light, 2,600 pounds, a lot of horsepower, 700 plus, but wide tires and a lot of grip.
16-inch wide, 16-inch
high. A lot of grip. Yeah. And that's the first thing that stuck out to me. The first time I drove one of those cars was last year at Motor Mile, because you were determined that I needed to do that.
Yes.
But
yes.
the feeling I got from those cars was just a tremendous amount of grip and power. You could turn the wheel and stomp the gas, even with 700 horsepower, and had good forward drive out of the corners. The biggest adjustment for me driving those cars had nothing to do with in the corner. It was on the straightaway. You run over 2 inches of stagger in the back of these cars, and it made the car kind of dupe around a little bit, I would call it, just because of the amount of stagger that they had.
When you talk about stagger, the back wheel's sticking out farther.
The right rear tire being bigger circumference around than the left rear tire. Okay. Look at it like a Solo Cup. If you take a Solo Cup and lay it over sideways and push it, it's going to go in a circle, because the right side is much bigger than the base of the cup.
Makes sense.
So when you've got stagger in a race car like that, in a NASCAR, a half inch to 3/4 of an inch of stagger is all we would run. But they run 3+ in an open wheel modified to help it turn. And that's the best way I can describe it. Again, if you're at home listening, take your Solo Cup, lay it over on the side, the base of the cup on the left, the sipping end of the cup on the right. And if you just push the cup a little bit, it'll go in a complete circle because of the stagger in the cup. Did you know Solo Cups had stagger, Moss?
Just a little bit. I didn't know it was that much, though. Most slim cans are same circumference.
Have you ever staggered when you're holding a Solo Cup? I mean,
Hermie just went.
You're a DJ.
That's
That's a yes.
If you take one of those slim cup, slim bottle
can,
Michelob Ultra can, and put it, it's the same stagger per se. And if you push that, it's just going to go forward.
I'm a little more familiar with that.
Right.
He just went scientific on
this. See, that's hermetology.
That's hermetology.
That's why this is
you
so
finally
important.
got to something that I understand a little something about.
All right. So I've heard late model stock or stadium stock. Is there a difference in what are they? What's a late
I've never heard of stadium stock. Late model stock car is what I raced at South Boston.
What's the difference between that and, say, an Xfinity car or the next-gen cars that we see in NASCAR?
Wheelbase is different. The cars are not offset. There's no offset built into a late model stock car. The bodies are fiberglass bodies. Engines, they run a 2-barrel carburetor on a late model stock car, so you have probably in the 400 neighborhood horsepower as opposed to 6 to 650 in an Xfinity type car. But the biggest difference is, and the one the driver feels the most, is that late model stock cars, say at South Boston Speedway, Orange County Speedway, Dominion Speedway, all those places, you run a bias ply tire. You don't run a radial tire. So you can really feel.
What is a bias ply tire?
Bias ply tire is what they run in NASCAR, which is a radial. Oh, bias ply tire is an old school racing tire like you ran since the beginning of time. It's not a radial tire, no interliner. Sidewalls are very, very soft, and you can really feel the movement of the car. Kind of like the old Hoosier F45 was a tire we ran at racetracks all over the Southeast for as long as I can remember, but it's not a radial tire. No belts, no steel belts, no sidewall, weaker sidewall, that kind of thing.
Okay, and our final question here in Hermetology, the inaugural event of Hermetology, the Hornets. You know, you see these Hornet races as a part of the features in some of these small tracks. What's a Hornet car?
I know nothing. I know not enough about them to discuss them other than by listening to them. They sound like 4-cylinders, and they sound like when they go in the corners and start squealing, it makes me sound like it's a kind of a street radio tire on them. And when you have to turn the front wheel so much to get them to turn that they start squalling, that tells me it's kind of like a street radio top tire on them in a four-cylinder engine.
And they pull out all the windows, and it kind of looks like a beat-em-up car that they got maybe out of the junkyard. That's usually a Toyota Tercel.
I don't know a lot about the Don't know a lot about the mechanical side of them, but I can tell you the people that race them have just as much fun as anybody else on a car on any given Saturday night.
And quite frankly, I think every time we've seen Hornets run, a couple of those guys get in a couple fights too. So
they run about 35, 40 laps.
Did anybody,
30 laps?
30, 35.
Now, before we leave Hermetology, did you see any of the Bowman Gray? They have the sled race where they have
chain race,
where one car's in front and they're doing the driving and the gas, and the car in the back, I think, does the braking, and they're chained together.
Oh,
and there was a big, huge fight out there.
What could possibly go wrong?
And it was an amazing. It looked like wrestling.
You sent me a photo of the fight, and one of the still shots, another guy had another guy by the jewels.
Yes. Well, they say hang on to your equipment. I just didn't hear it was somebody else's. But yes, I sent you that picture.
But kind of remind you of the bathroom.
Those that go to Bowman Gray, if the people that go to Bowman Gray on a Saturday night and watch a night full of racing and don't see at least one fight, they're disappointed.
Now, have you been watching Bowman Gray at all? Because, I think they put new tar down on the track. They repaved the track. Mm-hmm. There's not a lot of passing. I'm not as impressed.
Qualifying is key, very important.
Yeah, I'm just not as impressed. I mean, you maybe have one position change. Our guy won out there in Bowman Gray. He came from second to first and then held his line, and that was it. So
Jonathan Brown, God
bless him. Mm-hmm. So, ladies and gentlemen, I hope you enjoyed.
We get back on track June 29th.
Yeah, we do.
Next week we can be talking about it. The Smart Modified Tour going back on track at Caraway Speedway.
It's going to be fun. I can't wait. It's about time we get back. So
are you going?
I don't know yet. It's a weekday. I've got things I have to do. So that is Hermetology. We're going to close with
Hermetology. Yo.
Did he say yo?
Yo.
Yep.
Yo.
So there you go.
That sounds like Lee Talley.
Is that right? So we put a lot of production value in this. Both
I didn't know I could get that low, actually.
Yeah, and so we're pretty impressed with ourselves. This, of course, we're growing, and as we grow our production values, these will get better.
Got to have more sponsors.
It might be better next week if you let me give you the questions.
Okay, that'll be fine. If you'd like to prep this up, we'd love to have you. So the second thing we're going to do is we have gotten Hermie's answering machine, which is growing in popularity. We had so many questions. We can only take 2 this week. But what we do is encourage our fans and listeners to go to our Facebook page. There's a button right there.
Page?
Facebook page is Leaning Right and Turning Left podcast. And so you can join like that. We'd love to have you like it. And then you get on there, and there's a button where you can leave a message for Hermie, and then Hermie will respond. So we've got a couple today, but ladies and gentlemen, this is Hermie's answering machine.
Now come on, fellas, try to keep it clean, because it's time for Hermie's answer machine.
Jesus Christ.
Is that Jeremy Borash?
Well, there you go. So that's our first introduction. We'll work on that, a little bit of production. But ladies and gentlemen,
what was the production budget that went into those lead-ins?
It was a zero.
About as much as Tom Graziano's paid so far?
About as much as your sponsors have paid so far.
I told you I was cheap, but I was good.
So let's.
I lied.
First, we're gonna pause here. We're gonna listen to actually Hermie's answering machine as it's playing.
Hi, this is Hermie. I can't come to the phone right now because I'm with my therapist. We're talking about my bad breakup with The Rock. So please leave a message after the beep, and when I stop crying, I'll try to call you back.
Hi, Hermie. This is Francine. Sorry you can't take my call because you are such a busy big shot. But when you get a chance, can you tell me when you were racing and who was your favorite driver to race with? And who is the sumbitch on the track that you just couldn't stand? And don't be shy. I expect a full answer, and I will be listening to your podcast for a response. Thank you. Bye.
She from Franklin County?
I really don't know.
Francine.
Well, thank you, Francine, for the phone call. Now, Hermie, yeah. I think the question was, who'd you really love racing with, and who's that sumbitch that you just couldn't stand being on the track?
Well, the second part is easier to answer. The first real problem I had with a recurring problem with someone on the racetrack, and I became friends with him later in my career, but he gave me a hard time when I first started, but bless his heart, he's dead and gone now. A guy named Wayne Patterson, older guy that had a lot of experience, won a lot of races. And for some reason, the first couple of years that I raced late model stocks at South Boston, Orange County, and Southside, we just kept finding ourselves wrecked with each other. And he wrecked me intentionally on 3 consecutive Saturday nights at South Boston. And then I decided on the 4th night that I was going to retaliate, and I hit him under caution, and my car went above his car, above the hood, up almost into the fence, into the grandstands.
Whoa.
And so, we had to go to the NASCAR trailer. I got suspended. He tried to tell everybody I tried to kill him, which I did, all that.
That's honest. Wait. Attempted murder doesn't have a statute of limitations, Shep. I think I should advise you as your attorney, But I guess he's dead. So.
He passed away. And like I said, I learned to, after we had those episodes and I showed him that I had had enough, we learned to coexist a whole lot better. And as far as a driver, and I keep going back to my early career, a driver that I'd enjoyed racing with the most, the one that was a great competitor, but also was older and became a lot of a mentor to me early in my career, is another driver that I raced with at South Boston in Orange County early in my career. The guy's name was Maurice Hill, and he was always helpful. His regular job was a service advisor at a Chevrolet dealership, and so I had a Chevrolet dealership as well. But he's one that I think took me under his wing when I first started racing stock cars, late model stock cars at South Boston, Orange County, and was very helpful to me. And I'll also throw in somebody who was really important to me and good to me. My first ever trip to Daytona to test, I'd never been on a track anything like Daytona, but in January 1993, in preparation for my first full-time season and my first race at Daytona, we went down for the preseason testing, and I just happened to be pitted in the same garage with Davey Allison. And Davey took me out in his car and showed me the line, showed me around the racetrack, showed me how to get to pit road, showed me where the bathrooms were, all that. And more importantly than that, when it came time to go drafting practice at Daytona, he was the only one early in the practice weekend that was willing to go out and let me draft close with him and vice versa. At that time, he drove for Robert Yates in the Cup Series, but he owned his own Busch Grand National team, still had 28 Haviland on it, but it was his team owned by Red Farmer. And Davey, that weekend, really treated me like I belonged and made sure I knew where I needed to go and what I needed to do, and gave me my first drafting experience help at Daytona. and I've never forgotten it. And I was really made it that much more disappointing for me, when Davey got killed in a helicopter at Talladega.
Yeah.
And every time I see his wife, Liz Allison, somewhere, I always remind her about how kind Davey was to me and others back in those days.
Well, for then, you talked about the guy, the sumbitch that you might have had a little run in.
The sumbitch was Wayne Patterson.
So was there a sumbitch in NASCAR or the Busch Grand National?
He talked about that the other month.
What'd I say?
About the guy that wrecked you in Florida.
Well, that was
the what if moment.
Yeah, that was Larry Pearson. And even though that's the only problem I ever had with Larry Pearson, that's worth calling him a sumbitch.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I got a question.
Wrecked me when I was trying to win the inaugural race at Homestead Miami Speedway.
Yeah.
Did Maurice set you up in Richmond after your daddy had told you to park the car, that one race? Did Maurice get you to go to Richmond? You said he was a big mentor for you.
No. What happened, what I told you about my dad, when Shep, is very competitive. He doesn't understand finishing second, never has in anything. And we had a tough year. This would have been maybe the first couple late model stock car races I ran. We rented a car from Butch Servakis, Emmanuel Servakis, Stock Car Products. We rented a car from them. And then we actually bought a car from Curtis Malcolm from up in Fredericksburg. A guy named Ken Curley owned the car. Curtis Malcolm drove it.
What would a car cost back then?
I'm going to guess car without engine, probably $25,000, something like that. And I'd had a tough year, tough run of races. And we went to Southside on a Friday night. And I qualified mid-pack and finished mid-pack and didn't pass anybody, tore my car to pieces. And my dad told me,
this ain't for you.
You need to do something else. Nice, son, I love you, but racing's not your thing. And he basically told me and my guys in the shop that he was cutting off the sponsorship for me to keep racing. And so my guys that worked on the car and in the shop, we decided as a group on the way back home that, okay, if we're done racing, we're not going to be done after racing like we did tonight. So we decided as our group to go to Old Dominion Speedway in Manassas the next day. We loaded the truck, went, and we spent our money, not just me, but all the volunteer guys on my crew, the guys that work for us. We all put our money together to go to buy tires. We went to Old Dominion Speedway in Manassas. I was afraid to call my mom and dad before I left town because I knew they would not allow me to go. So I called them by the time we maybe got to the other side of Richmond. And I said, I know y'all going to be mad. I know what Daddy told me. But if I'm going to quit racing, I'm going to quit racing at least on my terms. And I told them what we had done. So I left it at that. I got to Manassas, went out for practice, qualifying, ran the race. I think it was a 100-lapper. And I won the race. And Dickie Boswell finished second, who was very well-known racer in that area.
Yeah.
Nice guy, too. Became...
Manassas was a great track, too.
Yeah. But so I won the race, and I was thinking to myself on the cool-down lap how disappointing it is for me to have won my first ever late model stock car race, and nobody in my family was there. So I go to pull up on the racetrack. The victory lane was on the racetrack. I pull up, get out of the car, start doing victory lane, taking pictures, doing all that. And who walks across the track? My mom and dad.
How awesome is that?
So my mom and dad, I'm sure after my dad cussed me like whatever, he then thought about it. They got in the car and drove all the way to Manassas, Virginia.
And that's not a small drive.
And watched me race from the grandstands. They never came into pits. I never knew they were there until the race was over.
I bet that meant a lot to them too.
Sure it did. We've talked about it since.
That's fantastic.
I was mad at him, but after I thought about it, I decided I wanted to go race. I'm sure he was mad at me, but after he thought about it, he decided
I'm going to watch him.
If he's going to race, I want to be there to watch. And that really, that first win kind of catapulted us into taking the next step, getting better equipment, getting a new car, doing all that. And then I think the following year, I finished second in points at South Boston. I think I won 7 races at South Boston the next year and finished second in points, and ultimately ended up moving on to the Busch Grand National Series. But that's how quickly things, whether it be racing or otherwise, things can make a turn for the worse or take a turn for the better. And that trip to Manassas, although against the will of my dad, ended up being what kind of catapulted my career moving forward.
And you know, Senator, with Father's Day this weekend, you know, Mr. Sadler, he goes to everybody's events. He doesn't miss a ball game. He went to all of Naomi's games, or a lot of them.
Yep.
I know he goes to Wyatt's baseball games, all of Elliot's races. I mean, that's so happy Father's Day.
Very supportive.
Happy Father's Day to you.
Happy
Father's Day
to all the dads out
Yep.
there. Yeah.
To everybody.
Yeah.
All right, so I think we got another call. This one's from Michelle, I do believe.
Hey, Hermie, this is Michelle. You never answer your phone. You're as bad as Bill Stanley is. Since Ross Chastain smashes watermelons after he wins, and Daniel Suarez smashes taco pinatas after he wins, what would you smash if you were still racing NASCAR and won a race? Thanks, bye.
Well, my answer to that is, Michelle, come to Motor Mile Speedway in October when I am competing in the Smart Modified Tour race in the Stanley Sadler Open Wheel Modified.
No, much better now. It's now Sadler Stanley. Remember, you gave me an extra week of making me the lead. But now we're back to the...
I would say come to the race and watch me race and cheer me on and hope that I win and see what I smash.
Maybe some Steve Weisers.
Well, why not get out some scratchers and do some Virginia Lottery scratchers?
Not a fan of the lottery right now.
Really? But, you know, I've got a clip right now of when he loved the lottery. Listen to this.
Speed, and concentration.
Hermie Sadler, driver of the Virginia Lottery's lucky number 13.
Where'd you come from? The competition is intense. You really have to focus and channel all that adrenaline. Then, just smash the nickel to the ticket and let it go.
Pole position, new from the Virginia Lottery. Top prize, $20,000.
Hey, he bumped me. Gonna tell my mama.
I remember that.
Smashed a
Y'all have had a lot of
can do some digging.
Y'all had a lot of free time on your hands.
Production value, my brother. We are
Ellie
concentrating.
and I cut that commercial at Richmond International Raceway. I don't remember the year, but long time ago.
You know, you can barely see Elliot's face. They had to put Hermie's brother Elliot underneath his face because he's waving at you. And he's
I
covering
joke
his
now,
face.
but you know, I guess the older I get, talking about my dad, I hold it against people more when they do me wrong for some reason. I think I had a 22-year relationship with the Virginia Lottery. Loved every minute of it. Represented them on and off the racetrack. Did events all over the Commonwealth and went to tourism events and other things for them for years.
Yeah, you were the face of lottery.
And then, you know, get a new director. He comes in and he's got a different idea, a different attitude, wants to do different things. And that's well and good.
Who is that guy?
Kevin Hall.
Ooh.
And then he wants to kill small business on top of that.
Didn't we depose him in your case?
We deposed him in my case in your office.
That's correct. And that was quite a deposition.
Quite a deposition.
We learned a lot.
Was it revealing?
I don't. So let me go back.
It was. And you know what I think it was? You know, Hermie just hit the nail on the head again. You know, I think for Hermie, you know, the chickens came home to roost. I think it really hurt him to listen to how flippant they took that relationship and how seriously, in contrast, that Hermie took that relationship with them. I mean, remember, he's not only in America's sport at that time, number one sport, but also next to college football, the number two watched sport and attended sport in the Commonwealth of Virginia. He's also lottery's representative. He's on commercials, and he's carrying the motto for the state of Virginia Tourism Board: Virginia is for lovers. I mean, he is Mr. Virginia, and I think it was upsetting for you how it ended.
Yeah, I mean, I had such a great relationship. Penny Kyle, who was a Virginia Lottery director for years, I became really close friends with her. She ended up leaving the lottery and went to be president of Radford University and then other things. And then Paula Otto, I still communicate with Paula quite often, a great director. And I'll just say it like it is. Kevin Hall got in over his head. And it's not just me. They lost several people that.
I mean, wasn't he a news reporter before he became
I don't know.
And the PR
I'm just like
communications guy for one of the governors?
I look at it
then
this
he's
way.
the head of one of the larger money-making operations for the Commonwealth of Virginia.
Were they relatives?
Let me just leave it like this, just so people understand. I'm the kind of person that if you don't like me or don't want to do business with me or have my program or if you don't like NASCAR, or the program wasn't your idea, just be upfront about it and say, we don't want to do A, B, C, D, and E. Don't come see me and tell me, Hermie, we love you, we appreciate the 20 years you've put in, and this, and that, and the other. Then go back to a boardroom and diminish who I am or what I tried to do for the lottery or the lottery in general and their support for NASCAR and otherwise. Just tell the truth, you know. And he in my view, in
your opinion,
in my opinion, he didn't do that. So it's unfortunate because again, I spent 20 years of my life representing proudly the Virginia Lottery and all the things that they stood for. But, you know, as it relates to our ongoing lawsuit, which I hate to bring everything back to that, the lottery and Kevin Hall was a huge part of providing inaccurate information to a lot of people.
It sure were. And, you know, I think what was even more revealing was not only in that deposition, they were pushing the narrative that because of skill games in convenience stores, truck stops, restaurants, and bars, the lottery was suffering, when in fact the lottery had one of the largest
record years
ever on record. And when we asked for discovery from the Virginia Lottery and we saw their breakdowns, they were looking at stores that had lottery sales and also skill games. And where that was occurring, lottery sales were up, except in maybe one or two instances up across the board. But they were still selling that narrative to the General Assembly.
Yeah,
I mean
they had state senators on the Senate floor saying the skill game industry has cost the lottery $140 million in sales for this calendar year. And it just wasn't true.
And it was BS. It was bullshit.
That was the best deposition that I enjoyed the most because, you know, Kevin even came in that day and tried to be all nice and this and that and the other. And guy, you know, just wasn't, you know.
He wasn't happy with me at the end.
I'm just not about that.
He was not very happy with me at the end. I was asking the questions. And at the end, I think he was not very pleased. And I think, you know, one of the other things that we even found out later, because we asked for documents from the lottery after his deposition, was they had hired as a consultant an attorney out of Pennsylvania with a large law firm that was actually actively working against skill and for casinos. And he was feeding them information that was detrimental to skill, but also was then being fed to the members of the legislature. That just wasn't true. And so, you know, you can tell Hermie gives his all to friendships. He gives his all to whatever endeavor he gets into, whether it's our race team, it's this podcast, or so many other things he involves himself in. And it was a little bit heartbreaking just to watch how he had really given blood, sweat, and tears, a lot of time, had gone and talked to children in his fire suit and talked about things that were important to Virginia.
And some of the other
that's
stuff.
How it ended up.
I know you weren't trying to get to all this by playing that commercial. I really enjoyed doing that commercial.
Yeah.
And I have fond memories of those times with the lottery. But outside of that, there was other people that worked for the Virginia Lottery that had been there longer than I had that got mistreated in a bad way because maybe they were friends with me or whatever the case may be. Yeah. And Kevin Hall, even because I had 5 of them call me and tell me, even told people that work for the Virginia Lottery, don't be communicating or associating with that Sadler boy. You know, when they knew the lawsuit was coming.
Oh.
You know, so if you ain't got nothing to hide, why are you trying to, you know, tell everybody don't communicate?
It's kind of a Vince move.
And every one of them called me and said, "Hey, they've told us not to communicate with Hermie." And I'm like, him.
Easy.
And he did nothing wrong.
Did nothing wrong.
He did nothing wrong. And there's nothing. In fact, we said, was there any problem in the deposition? Was there any issue? Did Hermie ever breach Scott? Nope.
So did Kevin have?
It was great.
Did Kevin have counsel during the deposition? I would imagine.
He did. It was the Attorney General's office. And we were there right after inauguration when we saw the boxes coming out of the Virginia Lottery building from his office, as Governor Youngkin said, "Thank you, but we're going in another direction." So sometimes, you know, time creates vindications, and we've certainly seen that. So
how well I hope to experience.
So I'm not thinking, based on Michelle's question, that Hermie will be smashing a nickel into a scratcher after he wins at the Motor Mile, but we want you to come out there and see it. And I'm telling you, those ladies sound like they're related, but I don't know that for a fact.
Our companies are still partners.
To Sadler.
Our companies are still partners with the Virginia Lottery, and we have a good relationship with them. Kelly G is now the new director of the Virginia Lottery.
That's right.
And I've known her quite some time. She's a good friend of mine.
She's great.
And I wish her well. Leadership is important. And I think...
So is integrity.
Integrity. And I think Kelly G has and will continue to do a good job of leading the lottery. That don't mean we'll agree on every issue. And I know there's probably some hurt feelings about how our lawsuit has turned out and some of the revelations we made for the lottery. But it's hard feelings on my side and business owners all across the Commonwealth of Virginia
Absolutely.
that have pushed the lottery for many, many years too, that are being wrongly attacked in part by false information that in years past the lottery provided. So I'm gonna put that behind me, and I'm gonna wish the lottery well. And again, I will say that I think Kelly G was a good choice to run the lottery, and I think she'll get the relationships back going with the brick and mortar stores that they're going to need to have long-term success.
I think that's important, and especially when you got Rosie's competing. Brad Tuesday lives down the street from Rosie's in Vinton, and he says the parking lot, they've even got a parking garage full all the time. They don't think that's hurting lottery.
Yeah.
I mean, if they think a little skill game in a truck stop is hurting lottery.
3 machines.
Right. I mean, and you actually have a complimentary, there's no lottery machines, no scratch tickets in a Rosie's, I'm pretty sure.
All I
but
want
there
people
are
to do,
convenience stores.
this is your fault because you got me jacked up on it.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I thought you were a little on edge today.
All
Just
I
pulling
want
it
people
out.
to do is tell the truth.
Yeah.
And that's been an ongoing battle. We proved that the Virginia Lottery was in no way affected by skill games in these locations. We proved that.
Proved it.
We also proved that skill games did not fly into stores in the middle of the night with nobody checking into them, knowing what they were. ABC, the deputy policy director for the ABC, testified in our hearing that we looked at the games and we made an independent evaluation that these games are games of skill, therefore legal to be in stores where there's ABC. Just everything. We shouldn't have to spend time and money and effort and resources to disprove information from a state agency.
Well,
Is
yeah.
that fair?
Well, it's absolutely fair,
Okay.
but it's also, lottery had a partner it could be working together with. And instead, again, this goes back to my point, when the casinos come in, and remember, casinos are basically being the oversight is the lottery. But if you're going to do it our way, if you're going to let casinos in through the door, it's going to be their way. And that's a part of the body politic. That's kind of the mindset. And I think lottery bought it.
Why did you get me off this?
Question. Have you had
It was
any...
Michelle. It wasn't me.
And Francine. Have you had any luck with
Michelle and
localities?
Francine, the some bitch.
Have you had any luck with localities enforcing the injunction?
No. Zero.
So they're just turning a blind eye.
Yeah. Yeah, they don't know what's a skill game that is legal or illegal at this point because they're not trying. I have sent out.
Are they tearing this building down while we're in here? What is?
Sounds like assault.
Did I miss a payment?
There's
I don't know, but I'm stuck to this damn seat again. Damn.
Well, I'll tell you what, you can lose some skin in this place. No, I have sent to even Commonwealth attorneys, here's the difference. Here's what an illegal game is, and here's a legal game. I sent them the list of what the registered games were in the Commonwealth of Virginia through the Virginia Lottery and the ABC. They've got it right there.
Well,
now,
I
what
will
we've
tell
seen
you.
is the zoning that we talked
Yes.
about earlier, Shep, and we've talked about that kind of stuff. But, it's our responsibility in the General Assembly. I'm just going to say this very quickly. We could do this very easily in a tax and regulate process. We could get rid of illegal gambling, illegal gaming, illegal VGTs, allow the proper legal skill games. Skill games profits could pay for the policing 10 times over, adding more Commonwealth attorneys, adding more law enforcement. ABC had a very good system that's very simple, very couldn't be defrauded. We have just, again, bought into the body politic, bought into the mindset, bought into the brainwashing, in my opinion, of big casino gaming interests that say, we're going to keep it small and control it all.
Well, I will tell you, since our last podcast that I was on, our county Commonwealth attorney, Alan Nash, reached out to me, and he is very interested in pursuing what you and I discussed about. Sure. And I don't necessarily know if we should discuss that part of it here or not yet, but hopefully Mecklenburg County in the town of South Hill will be one of the first in the state of Virginia to start closing down these illegal games.
Good, and they should, and they must. It's an illegal game. You're getting no tax revenue.
That's what's competing against the
lottery. You're ripping
lottery.
off the consumer who's playing it, And usually there's a criminal element involved in who's getting all the money. In skill games, those are taxed because it's part of the taxation. We had the tax structure before. Now what we have is a part of the income level taxation, at least for that business. So it is being taxed. It is being monitored. It's an ABC operated places like this truck stop right here. And quite frankly, you can tell what's illegal and what's not legal. What's illegal, what's legal. You can tell right there from those machines right across.
Oh, absolutely. Well, we've had a lot of fires lit here in the last 30 days. But as they are cooling down, we're going to start addressing that with Alan.
Let's say one more thing, and I try to close with this anytime there's a discussion about these games, to make sure people understand my position as the plaintiff in this lawsuit. I am not trying to block casinos from coming to Virginia. I'm not trying to block Rosie's from expanding in areas of Virginia, including my hometown of Emporia. I'm not trying to block sports betting, online betting, any of that. I'm simply trying to protect the rights of small business owners and operators to be able to legally operate skill games at their locations. And we want to be taxed and regulated fairly. We want to operate legally, and we want to partner with casinos and Rosie's and these other entities to get rid of these illegal operators that y'all are talking about. How long is it going to take us to get to that point where we all sit down in a room and realize all along, skill is not the enemy of the casinos. Skill is not the enemy of Rosie's. But they're just so used to getting their way and pushing everybody down like a bulldozer and moving on about their life. We're not going to let them do that. We're going to fight. And so I hope once they realize finally that Senator Stanley and I are here to stay on this issue because of how it's being applied and the people that are being affected, I hope one day we can all get in a room together and say, you know what? We're the ones that are doing it the right way. You stay in. Look, we want to have, if you want to put a fair number on how many games can be in each location, fine. Let's do a fair tax and regulation system, fine. Do all that. Let the casino do their deal, whatever. And then let's put our resources together, because what happened last July 1 when this ban took place, the only people that got hurt were the people that were operating legally. Correct. The illegal operators have had a field day since July 1, and that continues to this day.
You are absolutely correct, Hermie. I love when I get them fired up.
You done got me to sweating.
Yeah.
I hope right here in South Hill we're going to be one of the pioneers in trying to start enforcing this.
And I hope you're the model, because you know what, when it works for one locality, then you know plagiarism is a sincere form of flattery. Sure. And so I think other companies.
All you got to do is be able to show how to do it.
And I can show you how to do it. I know how to judge a game from legal or illegal. We've gone on a long time. We want to thank Francine and Michelle for the inaugural edition.
No, we don't.
Of Hermie's Answer Machine. I think that was great. And so if you want to participate in Hermie's Answer Machine, go to our Facebook page, Leaning Right and Turning Left Podcast. On Facebook, find the button right there. Leave us a recording like Francine and Michelle did, and we'll play it on the air. And quite frankly, if we get your address, we'll try to reach out to you, maybe send you some Sadler Stanley merch.
And be sure to
participate.
Be sure to share that page.
Absolutely. Please share the page. It's growing, and our podcast listing audience is growing. We've been going on for a while. Are we doing wrestling today, or are we going to move that off?
We need to move that off.
Are we?
Yeah.
Okay.
Also,
we promised you that we'd talk about Hermie's wrestling career. We're going to do it on the next show. So
put it in the can.
Shep, I don't know what your availability is on Friday.
It's tight.
Is it tight? Because
my schedule's always
What do you
tight.
got to go to a buying conference for sundresses from Memory Makers there, Big Cat?
No, I probably got to try to sell some cars for Brandon Boyd.
Oh, well, you know. So, hey.
If you buy one.
Is Brandon single or is he married?
He's single.
Okay, because there's a really, I hear, gorgeous young lady who would love to meet him out in Virginia Beach. Friend of mine who met him, former senator of mine, called me up and approached me.
Wow.
And I said, look, I'm not a matchmaker.
Text me off.
And I know a guy who owns a place called Memory Makers, but I don't think that's matchmaking.
No.
But I'd reach out to you guys. So,
but if you want to test drive a car Friday, I could deliver it for you to test drive.
In downtown City.
Well, I need to buy.
Wherever.
Now, look, we are going to be recording next week's podcast on Friday. And what we're going to be doing, and this is a little teaser, is we're going to have one of the finest political consultants And we're going to have a primer on so you want to be a candidate for state senate or state office. And we're going to have this gentleman sitting with us telling us exactly what it takes to win, not only just to run, the mechanics of running, but also winning a Senate seat or a House of Delegates seat or even a local race like you at South
I wonder
Hill
who
Town
sitting here
Council.
would need that.
I don't know, but I think everybody who listens to this podcast.
Pace-O-Matic
really
is an entertainment company which develops gaming software that players love to play and can use their skills to win every time. Plus, these games of skill provide vital revenue to keep family-owned businesses like bars, restaurants, and convenience stores thriving. That is the end of this show.
It is not.
Thank you.
Thank you for having
Shep,
me.
can you make it on Friday?
Once again.
Test drive up there.
Are you test driving?
Yes.
Friday?
Yes, absolutely.
I need to buy, on a serious note, I need to buy 2 3/4-ton Dodge work vans for my HVAC people. Can you help me?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Then you can come to Richmond Friday.
All right. I don't know if I'll have one of those by
What
Friday.
about one of them Grand Wagoneers, one of them big dogs? You got one in the lot?
I got one ordered.
He's got a pretty one ordered.
What color?
Gorgeous.
Like the red?
It's white.
Mine's white.
It's a rock white.
With the gold finishes?
It's going to have
And
the
the
blackout
tint.
package.
And I hate children, and I hate wrestling, and I hate...
You know what he may put on the license plate?
Can you sign us off, Senator?
Granite.
Can you sign us off, Senator?
No, Shep and I are having fun.
Hey, I tell you what.
Don't make us get off.
I
Don't
tell
make
you
us
what.
leave.
I might, when the time is right, I might have a local bombshell that we reveal on this podcast. And you know a little bit about it.
Ooh, I
You
can't
saw
wait.
a little bit of it.
See, we're just sitting over here
Are
teasing
we talking
right
about the
now.
woman that wants to meet Brandon?
Well, a
That is
local
a local
bombshell.
bombshell.
Political bombshell.
Ah, boy, we're just over here teasing. You really want to go?
Yeah.
I mean, you done?
Yeah.
We're having such a good time. Shep, I love
How long has the show been on?
I appreciate it.
Hour and 45 minutes.
We got 15
of nonsense.
We got 15 to burn.
Hour and 45 minutes of nonsense.
Well, I'm trying to get us to 80,000 listeners so we can get you a sponsorship from Memory Maker.
I got 2 big ones on the hook. I'm going to put Senator Stanley right on to shame when I get piped in here.
I cannot wait. I wait with bated breath.
I had
I
one that I
truly
was
do.
already working on, and I got another one that reached out to me a couple days ago that really, don't you remember me telling y'all this? Really excited me. Really excited me.
Wow. Like,
Really. One,
So that's like one of them gels they
One is-
sell at Spencer's.
one is related to a sports type recovery agent that I'm talking to, but the other one really got me going.
He's teasing now. Now he's teasing. Wow.
Well, both people can play this game.
did you meet him in a bathroom?
Billy Rose.
Because Senator was really excited when he
I want to
came
be
out.
in my
He
bathroom.
was doing it in front of the fan
Yeah.
for 30 minutes.
All right.
I want to apologize to that trucker. I was just trying to dry my pants. It did not look like I was trying to dry hump the dryer in the bathroom. In the men's bathroom at the South Hill Sadler Travel Plaza. I knew it looked stupid, but I had water on my pants and I needed to get dry because I didn't want to walk through the Sadler Travel Plaza with a big wet.
Pace-O-Matic is an entertainment
is that
company
wrong?
which
Is that
develops
wrong?
gaming software that players love to play and can use their skills to win every time. Plus, these games of skill provide vital revenue to keep family-owned businesses like bars, restaurants, convenience stores, and truck stops thriving. Bill?
Shep Moss, thanks for coming by,
Thanks
man.
for
You're
having
always
me.
awesome. You know
That was
what?
great.
For some reason, you just make me laugh, and I love riffing with you.
He's trying to get
I
to
want to
15
thank the
minutes
Sadler
right here.
Travel Plaza for hosting us in the Driver's Lounge right here in beautiful South Hill, Virginia. Next week,
Great
Pace-O-Matic
fried
is an
chicken.
entertainment
Yeah.
company
Great
which develops
fried chicken.
gaming software
The,
that players
cheap
love to play
gas.
Banana
and can
pudding
use
is
their
awesome.
skills to win every time. Plus, these games of skill provide vital revenue to keep family-owned businesses like bars, restaurants, convenience stores, and truck stops thriving.
With 12 convenient
Bill?
pumps out front.
Yeah,
It was
except
only
one.
block.
Except one that Hermie parks his car. Now, you must own the place if you park right in front of a gas pump.
Just block the pump.
Just block the pump. We
But
had to
know, I
park
did
around the
that.
back.
Stop by and see the slip-in convenience store family get a great.
Because every time I pump a
Piece of
gallon of
fried
gas
chicken.
here and somebody uses a credit card, I'm losing money. So I figure if I park my truck out there, then I'll just leave the gas in the ground. and be better off.
See how the business model has changed for Hermie. No wonder he's on this, man. I like this, Hermie, by the way. Can you bring this back on Friday? Because we got so much to do. And we also have coming up in the future, we've had a commitment from our former governor,
Pace-O-Matic is an entertainment company which develops gaming software that players love to play. This is a contractual obligation.
Put the donut in, Chad.
And
now.
can use their skills to win every time. Plus, these games of skill provide vital revenue to keep their family businesses on, like bars, restaurants, convenience stores, and truck stops thriving.
Bill, I think they want those commercials spread out through the podcast, not stacked six deep right
They're
now.
loving it, right? Ladies and gentlemen, you've been listening to the Leaning Right and Turning Left with Sadler and the Senator podcast, coming to you from South Hill, Virginia. I'm still Virginia State Senator Bill Stanley. And you know what, Shep? Have you tried the banana pudding?
And I'm Hermie Sadler, and I'm turning left. And congratulations for listening to what probably is our last episode. We may or may not see you next week. Goodbye.
God bless you, everybody. We had fun. I hope you did too.